Hello, my name's Ben,
And my name's Josh.
and welcome back to FPL Graduates, and welcome back to another video. With so many managers hitting the wildcard, we thought we would put in our 2 pence and put in a wildcard draft of our own. Without further ado, and you're going to want to see this, there's some pretty good picks in there.
Indeed, we've got to make our own wildcard draft if everyone else is making one. So we'll chip in like Ben says. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one because me and Ben aren't playing our wildcards. I played mine a couple of weeks ago, and I must admit, a lot of the players here, I'd say probably 10 out of the 15 are pretty similar to what I will have going into this week, which is a good sign of my wildcard still being relevant, which is nice. Starting off in goal, we've got Petrovic. Bournemouth defensively have been very, very good so far this season. Their run of fixtures have actually been quite difficult and have been quite resolute as a defence. Hence the double up with Senesi there as well. He's one of two, I think, well, three defenders, who have hit DEFCON in every single game so far this season. And yeah, both of them look pretty nailed on for a clean sheet against Leeds, despite them scoring 3 goals away at the Molineux. Ben, on that Bournemouth defence, is there anything that you'd like to add about them? I think they look super solid, and for the price, you can't really go wrong, I think.
Yeah, they do look solid, and they look like they can change the way they play based on the teams that they're playing against, and looks like that they can compete with those teams at the top. So, even when they do have a more difficult fixture, you'd still back them to do fairly well. And Senesi's floor is right up compared to most defenders because of how often he's hitting DEFCON so far this season. So, yeah, for me, the Bournemouth defensive picks are ones that definitely worth targeting.
Yeah, 100%. Two other DEFCON monsters then. We've got Virgil van Dijk. For me, I'd happily keep him, even though the fixtures are getting tougher for Liverpool. Purely down to that DEFCON factor. He's picking them up, I think, in all but one game so far this season, and that game was against Burnley, where they absolutely dominated the ball, so you wouldn't expect him to get too many. So yeah, these harder fixtures probably will warrant more DEFCONs for Van Dijk, which is obviously good news for him. Carries that set-piece threat as well with a header. We've already seen that so far in the Champions League, so yeah, good attacking threat from him. And then Tarkowski as well, an absolute DEFCON monster. I think he leads the way, or might be second to Senesi in terms of total DEFCONs overall. West Ham at home this week. Again, Everton go on a bit of a trickier patch, but the floor on all of these defenders, obviously we'll come onto the bench in a moment, is super, super high, like Ben alluded to. Is there anything you want to add on Tarkowski and Van Dijk, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, the floor is super high, and we're really targeting those DEFCON points, which I think is absolutely key. And it's shown to start the season. And you look at, the top point scoring defenders so far this season, and all of them are contribution and DEFCON in some form or way. You're just not going to be able to keep up with these players on just clean sheets and attacking returns alone. So yeah, I'd definitely be looking at all sort of DEFCON players and how you can really utilise them. And Van Dijk and Tarkowski seem to be sort of leading the way alongside Senesi in that regard.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to touch on the defenders on the bench first of all. So we've got Gabriel on there as our Arsenal coverage. Obviously, he will probably play ahead of Senesi most weeks. Just for this week, obviously, the fixture does favour Senesi. Again, good attacking threat from him. Not as many DEFCONs just because we see Arsenal with a lot of possession, so you wouldn't expect it as much from him. But still a very good asset in this draft. There's only going to be 2 Arsenal assets, so you could make the case of maybe getting David Raya in goal, for example, for a double up, but it leaves it open to sort of assess where maybe Bukayo Saka's fitness is and stuff like that. So you're not sort of rushing into a Arsenal double up with a tricky away fixture, to be fair, at Newcastle. Michele's the last defender at 4 million. He's hit DEFCON in all of his games so far this season, but he's only played in 3. Again, 4 million quid, you're getting 2 points minimum every single week, and Sunderland don't look like they're a team that are going to ship a load of goals. Although, I do expect their defensive performances to become a little bit worse. Obviously, they've had a very nice run of fixtures to start the season, which has helped them out big time. Is there anything else you'd like to add on those two, Ben?
No, not really. I think they sort of speak for themselves in terms of the value pick in Mukiele and then the premium pick in Gabriel. Having, the Arsenal coverage is going to be crucial within any wild card going forwards. Okay, so moving on into the midfield, and one of the picks I've been really hot about all this season so far is Tajani Reinders. With Pep's system and the way he's playing, especially now Aït-Nouri's out injured, it puts a lot more emphasis attacking wise on Reinders at 5.6 million with the good fixture run that Manchester City have got coming up. It's definitely worthwhile investing in those Manchester City players as well as those Arsenal players once we get to game week 7. So really like him as a pick. Semenyo, of course, is going to be in there. The run he's been on so far this season has been fantastic. 5 attacking returns already, which is pretty ridiculous. The fixtures are really good for the long term as well. So definitely one of the first names on the team sheet here. Similarly with Bruno Fernandes, this is the option that gives you, and I'm sure you can sort of tell there's no Salah in this draft. This gives you the route back to Salah should he start popping off. I think it's really important for team structure to be able to do this and to be quite flexible. Because if Salah does for whatever reason change around the form and Liverpool start firing on all cylinders against anyone, then you want an easy way to bring him back in, and Fernandes is that guy that's going to be able to do it. Whilst you've got Fernandes, he's going to tick along quite nicely with points as well. And then to sort of round off the midfield, we've got Ndiaye of Everton, who could potentially be on penalties. Everton have looked really good against everyone they've played so far this season, so really sort of good option as well. And then our cheaper option on the bench is Stack of Leeds, and again in a couple of game weeks so far this season, he looked really good and produced sort of hauls. And yeah, I don't think is a bad option to rotate in and out the team, especially with Ndiaye. The rotation between Everton and Leeds is quite nice as well. So Josh, what's your thoughts there on the wildcard midfield?
Yeah, I quite like it. I've only got 2 of them in my team personally. There will be 3 of them come the deadline. With Ndiaye, I think he's one of my favourite picks so far this season. He just looks like he's going to be a good asset all season long. If he can keep the minutes up, that is. I think that was probably the main issue maybe a couple of weeks ago, but since then we've seen him play the majority of games, and he's also added DEFCONs to his game, which is fantastic for owners. There's multiple routes to points, similar with Semenyo as well. He picked them up at the weekend. I don't think he'll pick them up as much as Ndiaye, but yeah, he's been an unbelievable form. Feel like he's like the Mbumo of last season, this season, if he keeps penalties as well. Just someone who you could probably pick up now and hold for the rest of the season, because he'll just be super consistent, and that's all props down to Bournemouth, to be honest, with the way that they set up against anyone. They're so good as a pressing team that they can basically beat anyone that they want. So the top 6 games when he faces those are probably just as good to play him in as sort of a Leeds away fixture that he's got this week. Reinders, I agree with you. I think he's, when he's in that box crashing style role, I think it's much better for him, obviously, from an FPL perspective. Outside of that, it does worry me slightly, but there are so many options at 5.5 million that you could easily find someone else around that price point. If he does have a few blanks in a row, it's not going to be too much of an issue. And yeah, like you mentioned, with the structure of the team, Fernandes offers that a route back to not only Salah but also Cole Palmer and Bukayo Saka if they become a little bit more favourable when they come back from injury as well. Okay, then to wrap up the team, then we've got the forward line, and obviously Erling Haaland's in there with that Burnley at home fixture. He is the captain, and obviously you aren't able to triple captain on a wild card, so that's the double points we'll have to do this week for him. Unbelievable form at the moment. I annoyingly took him out on my wild card to attack the Salah run of fixtures over the last couple of weeks, and he's outscored him in both weeks, which has been not ideal. But yeah, I'm happy to get him back this week, and he's just been a bit of a machine so far this season. João Pedro's next, which is an interesting one. I think minutes are going to become a concern the more we see him play. Obviously, he had a rest against Lincoln this week, so I don't think it will be in the immediate future. But obviously, with the likes of Cole Palmer out, there's no Delap. There will come a point in time, whether that be Champions League or Premier League, that he will need a rest just because he's playing so many minutes for Chelsea at the moment, which was the opposite of what we thought pre-season, where he would become a minutes risk because there's too many options. So yeah, it's an interesting one, but I think he's still a good option until we see that. There's no point worrying about something that hasn't happened just yet, but it's just something to think about. And obviously, plethora of options at that price point as well, at 7.5 million. And then Victor Gyökeres as well at 9 million. Again, offers someone who you could easily downgrade, similar to Bruno Fernandes, to get funds into another position if you wanted to. For me, he's my favourite Arsenal attacking pick, even over Bukayo Saka, just because the minute security is there. He hasn't been as injury prone as Bukayo Saka has been, and he's probably got the penalties off of Saka now going into this season, as we saw at the start of the season, albeit Saka was off the pitch, but we've had journalists report that Gyökeres is the number one taker here. So yeah, I think for £9 million, he's been pretty decent so far this season. I think, despite the quite tricky fixtures, to be fair, to Arsenal that they've had so far. What's the thoughts on the front line, Ben?
Yeah, front line solid. Of course, Erling Haaland's going to have to be in this team just because of how good a form he is in. So yeah, absolute shoe in there. João Pedro, yeah, I think it's been fantastic to see so many minutes from him, and he's looking like a really good FPL asset. And at the price point, you can't complain at all. So yeah, I think again, pretty much sort of solid and nailed on in 99% of wildcard teams. And then Gyökeres is an interesting one. I think he's a really good option. The minute security is obviously there. There's not actually too much downside in going with him because there's not too much competition up in that striker position for him. If the structure of your team's looking like you want to sort of invest in the front three, then by all means, I think he's a fantastic option to go for.
Okay, then, so that wraps up our Game Week 6 wildcard draft. If we were both going to be playing it this week, but like we said, we are not. I've played mine already. Ben's going to be saving his for a little bit later in the season. That doesn't mean it's not a good week to play it, though. A lot of managers will be hitting their wildcard button this week. So, yeah, we urge you to, if you are doing it, have a bit of fun with it. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And as always, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the FPL graduates. I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
And we'll see you guys
next time. Have a good game week, everyone.